Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal, where you can see I'm joined by James Benge of CBS for this week's Inside Arsenal Extra Time. How you doing, mate? All good?
I've got a bit of a cold, so
No.
apologies if I fail to mute myself quickly enough and unleash my cough, especially for our audio listeners. I feel like video, you've got a window to see it coming. I'll do my best. I'll do my best to mute.
You're going to sound like Gary Neville during the Chelsea versus Arsenal game at the weekend. Did you hear that? You were there, actually, weren't you? You probably didn't hear.
I didn't hear a thing.
You didn't hear
I
it.
only
He
saw he
lost his
gave
voice.
Cucurella man of the match.
He lost his voice when Martinelli scored. He just genuinely couldn't speak afterwards for a while. He was really, really struggling, and it happened again after the Chelsea goal. Yeah, he was struggling a bit, so maybe you'll sound like him. Only time you probably.
So he must have been who I got it from, because it was. I came back from Stamford Bridge and immediately felt horrible, and I have to apologise to Art de
Stamford
Roche.
Bridge does that to you. To be fair, mate, to anyone, it's kind of it's a thing of going there.
It does, but it's a nice place. It's a nice place to go and work, especially if you get there early and you sort
I
of.
hate the press box. I hate the press box. It's too small. Too small. It's one of those ones. I'm sorry. Some people can do it really well, but you know when you're like really squashed in press boxes and you can't move your arms, so you kind of your arms have to stay still, but you've got your fingers up. You've got to type like that. It's like Everton. I really, really struggle on it. It's just I'm dreadful at doing it, especially if I've got a big sort of coat on.
Fulham is the other one as well.
Which one?
Fulham. And
yeah,
shout out to Andy Dillon for we were sort of all squashed in one part of the press box, and he just got up, left, went sat somewhere else, and suddenly we could all work again.
I did that at Everton once. I watched the second half of an Everton. I think it was 0-0. Might have been Freddie's game in charge.
Yes.
Goodison. My knee was so bad. It was just I was supposed to have a knee operation, and I could not bear the press box. Sitting in the press box for the second half, I was in so much pain with my knee in that. And so I went down and watched it from the press room and covered it watching the TV.
I can't wait till that place gets bulldozed. I'm sorry, Everton fans.
What did you think of the Chelsea game before we quickly rattle on to the big news about Ben White that was broken this afternoon?
Yeah, I thought Arsenal were good. Again, sort of like Inter, it felt like a step in the right direction. I thought Martin Odegaard was wonderful. And then when you got the news from Norway that he wasn't even fully fit, it just made me admire that performance even more.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just frustrating from an Arsenal perspective that the margins now are so tough and so tight that one sloppy error, one moment where they didn't deal with the set play well enough, and it can really feel like the title challenge is not quite on the brink, but is becoming an uphill struggle.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I've got a couple of comments on the title chances a little bit later. I thought it was a decent enough performance. Like you, I mean, I was just marveling at what Odegaard did, given he's literally had a couple of training sessions after 9 weeks to go in a game of that magnitude, intensity, and play the way he did. Clearly, he wasn't fit. I think you could see that he wasn't fit, and that's no surprise. But he still had such a big impact on the game and the big moments that Arsenal had. He was heavily involved in them all. Just a remarkable performance, and it just made you more thinking, oh, if only been fit for the last 8 weeks, the difference. And I think it would have made such a huge difference. I don't know what points wise, but I think Arsenal with Odegaard in that team, it's a completely different looking league table. But it is what it is. It is an injury. You've got to deal with injuries, don't you? But it was fantastic to see him back. And yeah, I thought it was a decent enough performance. Like you said, it was just such a rubbish goal to concede after doing all the hard work, getting yourselves in front, to then just switch off like that. And it was such a strange goal. I had to watch the replay a few times to work out exactly what happened and how he was suddenly just able to have this huge chasm of space to run into. And, it was just a miscommunication by about 3-4 players. The corner had obviously thrown everyone. Saliba had been dragged out. 2 players were filling in for Saliba when one would have done. It was just a really avoidable goal. And you can see Arteta was angry afterwards, wasn't he? He was not happy at conceding a goal like that, and it was very un-Arsenal-like.
Yeah, it was very. It felt like the air went out of Arsenal as well, and
good response. Though I thought they ended the game well after that goal. I thought they responded really well to it,
and there were so many bright moments within that. Like, I sort of foolishly made the decision to sort of tweet at half time that Mikel Merino was going through a warm-up of his own. And the hystericism of Twitter. I'll see you on Blue Sky soon, by the way.
I'm on it.
Yay! We need to change these to...
I'm on it. Yeah, I just joined up this afternoon after your tweet. So yeah, I am on it.
Welcome.
Anyone watching who's on Blue Sky and uses it, myself and James Benge are now users. So have a search
Please
for us
join
and
us.
you'll find us.
Because we're used to having a lot more followers, a lot more engagement. But just this sort of like, I don't entirely think it's mad, because you can see why there's been a bit of frustration creeping into Mourinho. I do think it's been really hard for him to not come into this team with a pre-season to familiarize himself, to come straight kind of out of injury, to not have Erdegaard around him as well, to be playing a different system. I think all those things are hard. And then when a few of them melted away, he just looked great. He looks like such an impressive progressor of the ball. And having that from 8 with maybe a bit more dynamism than Xhaka had, you just think, oh, if we could see that for 90 minutes straight after the international break against Forest, Arsenal could put together that run they need.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that again. We've got some questions on that, little tweaks after the international break and that sort of stuff. So we'll talk about then. Let's talk about the big news that's come out of Arsenal this afternoon. Ben White, we've both had it confirmed now that he has undergone a small operation, and he's going to be out for. I mean, obviously, there's time frames being put. I haven't had a time frame confirmed, but he's going to be out for at least a few weeks. I know I've seen 8 weeks put out on Twitter and things like that, but I haven't had that number confirmed. And but he's going to be out for a while. He's been playing through the pain for a while. We know that. We've seen him, thrown on against Man City, didn't he? Lasted 45 minutes, then was out for a while. He's missed some other games. He was missing some last season even with it. So he's been playing through the pain. Arsenal felt this is the best time to get it fixed. And hopefully he'll be back pretty soon. The good news is that I think Calafiori, from my understanding, is close. I don't know if he'll be back immediately after the Forest game, but he is now very close to coming back, which will soften the blow a little bit, you would think. And hopefully Tomiyasu will be back fit as well. But how big is this, do you think, potentially for Arsenal, that Ben White is going to be missing for some time?
It's a strange one, because while I wasn't surprised when the news first sort of dropped on social media, there was also a sort of little bit of like, I thought Ben White had really improved the last 2 games and looked a bit more like himself. I mean, you can see he's not quite top tier Ben White, because those overlapping runs that we know so well, apologies if you can hear my dishwasher, those overlapping runs we know so well have been so much more infrequent, but I thought they'd come against Chelsea. And given the sort of stakes of Arsenal's season, it feels like you just need to rely on like full fitness from. You just need them available. You need anyone available you can get, and you go from there. And I know that, like you say, if Calafiori's back, if Tomiyasu's back quickly, the numbers are just about there. But top level Ben White is the best fullback in this squad. So it's really hard to know what the right gamble is in terms of like, can Ben White, who we know will play through the pain barrier all season long, if you ask him, can he do that? And is 80% of Ben White for the next 27 games worth more than 100% of Ben White for 23, 24 games? We don't know. We just don't know that. But it's a hammer blow, because, well, then again, if you can get Timber at right back starting week in, week out, and we know he's looked a bit tired of late. Timber and Calafiori,
I think that's
good in theory.
fine. I think when you look at the run Arsenal have got now, I think they've probably waited for this point to do it with Ben White. They've looked at the fixture they've had, the injuries they've had, and then they felt after this international break is a good time. We've got an easier set of fixtures. Easier, I say, on paper, set of fixtures. Calafiori is on his way back. We wait and see in terms of Tomiyasu. I think they've obviously picked this as the right time to do it, and I think you got look. You say White's the best fullback in the club. We haven't seen Timber as a prolonged playing at right back. When he has played at right back, I mean, he's looked very good, I thought, playing at left back anyway. But when he's played at right back, he's looked particularly good, impressive. He's a top quality player, Timber. So I think if you can, as long as you got Calafiori back, or in fact, whatever happens for me after international break, Timber has to play right back now in the absence of White. And then if Calafiori's not fit, then you play Zinchenko, you play Miles Lewis-Skelly, you play Kivior, you just play a left back. You don't switch Timber out to left back again for me. He has to now fill in for Ben White at right back.
And can we just see some of Alexander Zinchenko, by the way? I mean, it sort of feels like Mikel Arteta's been spending too long on those weird corners of Arsenal Twitter where anytime anything happens to go wrong on Arsenal's left flank, it's Zinchenko's fault. he's really good at what he's good at. And I think when you sort of think, what were Arsenal missing without Ødegaard? It was that those fizzed passes between the lines. And Zinchenko is the second best player in the squad at doing that behind Ødegaard. And I know he was injured for a while and he was restoring his fitness as well. And I do understand that everyone's frustrated by his defensive qualities. And evidently, Mikel Arteta wants a bit more balance in that position. But if Calafiori's not available and Ben White isn't fully fit, can we not see this guy that has been good enough in recent memory to play a role in an Arsenal team that finishes top 2, to play a role in a City team that kind of wins almost everything? This is my worry with Arteta all along, that it looks like a nice deep squad on paper, but if you're not going to use Zinchenko, if you're only going to use Kivior when you have to, you don't have a deep squad, do you? So I'd really like to see, maybe especially against a game like Forest, where they're going to sort of try and low block you and they're going to try and challenge you to score 2 goals. I'd like to see Zinchenko play that game. I'd like to see him play against Man United, against West Ham as well. Maybe not against Fulham, because having seen them in the flesh now, I'm convinced I'm completely sold on them. But you do need to find ways to use a player of Zinchenko's quality. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with Gabriel Jesus. I've been hammered in the comments for saying that I still think that those two have got big parts to play this season, because they are good players. They've proven that they're good players. Yes, they might not be first 11ers anymore, but they're good players and they've got a lot to offer. They've shown they've got a lot to offer. And if Arsenal are going to do anything this season, then you need those sort of players to get some minutes. And I agree. It's the age-old problem with Mikel, isn't it? That he always talks about squad. I remember in the last press conference, I think it was Moose asked him about the squad size, and Mikel was saying, we obviously want it, the regulations to be increased so we could have more players and things like that. I was just thinking, but you don't actually use the majority of the ones that you've got, really. And it is something that I think we all agree that he probably needs to improve on, or could improve on. But yeah, I would agree. For me, in that Forest game after international, I know Forest have got quick wingers and they like to play on the counter attack, and they've exposed teams doing that so far this season. But I still think if Calafiori's not ready, my back four for that Forest game would be Timber right back, and then Saliba, Gabriel, and Zinchenko.
Absolutely. No, I'd be 100% with you there.
Cool. Right, let's move on to some questions. We're going to rattle through some of these on today's show, because before the Ben White news broke, there wasn't actually that much news to talk about. So Ben White did us a bit of a favour. But we have got lots of questions. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of them, I've grouped a few of them together at the start here. Now, this is a long one, but I'm just going to sort of start with the top of it. And then we're going to go through. Now, I've been saying, mate, in the last couple of shows I've been saying that I'm not ready to wave the white flag when it comes to the title race yet this season. Yes, 9 points is a big gap to Liverpool, but it's not insurmountable. There's so much football still to be played. Arsenal were 5 points behind Liverpool in February last season. They beat them by 7 points, whatever it was. So why on earth can't they chase down a 9-point gap at this point? I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying that it's possible. And so I'm not waving the white flag yet. And I still think Arsenal can potentially win the title this season. And there's been lots of different sort of responses to it. One like here from Nicholas, he says, love your passion for the club, but let's be real for a minute here. Expecting Arsenal to mount a serious title challenge this season feels overly optimistic. Sure, the Gunners have the talent to make waves, but they've had a horrendous start marked by untimely injuries, and a string of suspensions that, justified or not, have derailed any early momentum. Not to mention transfer window left much to be desired. So he says Arsenal have had a horrendous start. Again, I don't really agree. They've not had a great start, and the momentum's certainly been halted. But I don't think they've had a horrendous start. And I got this from Orbino on Blue Sky, who has shown that they've got 4 fewer points than the 11 equivalent fixtures to play last season. So 4 fewer. Villa are 7 down. Chelsea have got 7+. Liverpool, who are 9 points clear, obviously, have got the same amount of points this season compared to the equivalent fixtures from last season. City are 3 down. And everything. So I don't think Arsenal have had a horrendous season by any means.
It's sort of the Bournemouth and that must be the Bournemouth and Brighton game, really, or something like that. That'll be the big contributing factor, won't it?
And then just quickly before I start, because I'll carry on, these are all grouped together. So then Vet Para's got in touch. He says, here's a stat. Last year's average league positions of the away games so far this season. And you look at Arsenal at the bottom there. So that league positions from last season for away games: 4th, 5th, 1st, 12th, 7th, 6th. You compare that to Liverpool: 19th, 8th, 14th, 10th, 2nd, City 6, 9, 7, 14, 12, 11. And he says, given we've played both of our Pot A Champions League games as well away from home, can you guys try and put into context how insane our fixtures have been to start with? We literally need to go to Anfield, Trafford, and the Amex. We've ticked off some serious away games already. So it's a sort of long, convoluted way of me responding to where are we going? I've gone the wrong way. Nicholas's comments there about why I still think they can mount a title charge. I think they've had a really tough start to the season. They've had a really difficult fixture list, horrendously difficult away games that they've had to go through, all with injuries. And fingers crossed the injury outlook is getting a little bit better. So I'm not ready to wave the white flag yet. Are you?
Not at all. I mean, there's two sides to this. We're not a Liverpool podcast. But I mean, now that especially a lot of Arsenal fans have seen Liverpool up close, and I've watched a lot more, it's nature of the job. Charles, do you, and I can only ask you, but question to the viewers as well, to Mo, do you think Liverpool are a 92-point team at the end of this season?
Not from what I've seen so far, no.
The results have been there, but the performances have been very good, but not best team in the world good. And that has been pretty much the standard Arsenal have been aiming for. So can this team sort of go at the pace that's required to overhaul a 9-point gap? And I mean, we know that what we're really talking there is a run of, Arteta said it in the press conference, didn't he? He said win 8 times. And it would be something like win more than 8, 10 games in a row. Can they do something quite remarkable in terms of putting together a winning run? Well, second half of last season, the run was 16-1-1 at the start of 2024. I quickly worked out that pace that they set for pretty much half a season is a 103-point pace. If you do it for the whole half a season, let me work that out. 49 divided by 19 times 38. They're at 98-point pace season on the second half of last season. So they can do that. We know that this team, which I think probably we would agree has got better rather than worse, maybe not as much better as teams would like, as fans would like, but it's got better and it has a near 100-point run in it. And I think if Arsenal get a near 100-point run, they can win the league. It'll need to be about that level. It can't be much less.
Mm-hmm.
If they start hitting 90-point pace, they're probably not. They probably have done too little in the first half of first 11 games to make it possible. Yeah. So they need something special. But we know this team is capable of something special. And I don't think that much has changed. I don't think the other teams have got better. I think a lot of them have got worse. The challenge is that the middle classes are a little bit better, but and everything that the guys there have said. I think if you even calculated sort of a median instead of a classic average, you'd probably find that like the median for Arsenal is even higher. The median for Liverpool is somewhere around 12th. So you have to still now just about account for the fixture list. And what we've seen when they've got 11 against 11 is they can take on really good teams and be the better team. Sorry, that was quite mathsy, wasn't it? But I enjoyed it.
It was good maths.
Helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's still everything to play for so far with this season, and I do think Liverpool are going to drop points. I mean, again, maybe I must underestimate it in Liverpool, but I just haven't seen enough of them yet to suggest that they are going to walk away with this league. They've obviously had an unbelievable start. They're riding a crest of a wave at the moment. But even I watched the Villa game and I was watching that and I was just waiting for Villa to equalise. It felt like they were going to equalise, but obviously Liverpool got unbelievable forwards and that is going to win them games, undoubtedly so. But I do think quite a lot of things have fallen for them at the moment. I look at Arsenal's next 7 games now after the international break. Forest, West Ham, United, Fulham, Everton, Palace, Ipswich. You've got to be aiming for 21 points, maximum points from those 7 games.
Yeah.
And that takes you to Brentford on New Year's Day. If you get 21 points from those 7 games, I think I would say that the gap will be down to at least 5 points. And it's still a big ask, obviously, to win 7 in a row in the Premier League. Still a massive ask. It doesn't matter who you play against. I mean, look at Ipswich going to Tottenham and winning at the weekend.
Let's.
it's far, yeah, it's far from a given that Arsenal are going to do that, especially on their recent form, because they haven't won a game in 4 matches in the Premier League. So asking them to win 7 in a row is maybe a big ask, but they can absolutely do it. And if they do that, I think the gap to Liverpool will be at the most 4 or 5 points on New Year's Day. And that is entirely doable if you're going into the second half of the season just 4 points off the top of the table. I think it's entirely doable. So it's a big ask, and they've given themselves, a bit of a hill to climb. But I definitely think they've still got a chance of doing it.
Probably need to win at Anfield, though. That's the one thing I would say.
I'm not even sure they need to win Anfield. I still think a draw
On
at
May the
Anfield.
10th. I just checked when that was.
Oh, yeah. God, I didn't realise that. I'm looking at Newcastle at home on the 18th as well. That'd be interesting. Yeah, why is that on a Sunday? Why is that game on the Sunday? Is that FA Cup final weekend or something? The Newcastle set the penultimate weekend of the season. All of them obviously haven't been changed for TV yet, so they all say Saturdays. But the Newcastle game, the penultimate weekend of the season, is already on a Sunday. It must be.
And so is Liverpool's penultimate game as well. So I would have to assume it's related to that. I'll be on my honeymoon then. I don't care.
Maybe cup final weekend or something like that. So yeah, in response to I can't remember who it was now, but that question. No, that's not. That's what I'm going to bring up next. But that's why I think Arsenal. I don't think I'm being overly optimistic. I think maybe I'm being optimistic, but not overly optimistic. There's still definitely a chance. Right, let's move on to some more now, shall we? Here's one from Jelly Belly. Always think of Harold Bishop when I see Jelly Belly. That is what Lou Carpenter used to call Harold Bishop in Neighbours, and Harold Bishop used to hate it. Arsenal really have to get Alabi in. Yeah, have you seen this story about? David Ornstein broke it this morning about Alabi leaving Sport about Real Sociedad at the end of the season. Not linking to Arsenal yet, but the fact he is leaving, it raises a possibility that he'll be on Arsenal's radar, and there's certainly a lot of links there to suggest it might be something that would work. I saw the Monaco. Damasio was linking the Monaco sporting director with Arsenal today as well. There's going to be loads of them linked, obviously.
Any good imports from Monaco to Arsenal that you're aware of? Anyone? I think one or two.
Yeah, certainly can. Yes, and so Jelly Belly says Arsenal really have to get Larbe in. There can't be too many experienced guys that are available, can there? The sooner we get someone in, the sooner they can work on what will be the most important summer transfer window ever. We always seem to say it's the most important summer transfer window ever.
We need people to engage with our summer content.
We need a world-class striker brought in. Jorginho and Partey are aging. Jesus and Zinchenko to sell. We need top winger when Sterling goes. The work to do in summer is key to winning trophies. And I mean, obviously, the summer is going to be absolutely key, no doubt about it. And they do need to get someone in pretty sharpish, but they're not going to rush into it. While we continue on the sporting director theme, this was one from Mike, who is talking about Edu. And then he says, I think a great topic of discussion would be Edo's wins and losses as a sporting director, such as great wins, Eddie, Balogun, signings like Odegaard and White, losses of signings like Fabio Vieira and Sambi Lokonga. Off the top of your head, if you're being asked to give the biggest win of the Edu era, I mean, it's got to be Odegaard, hasn't it? Yeah. As in signings, it's got to be Odegaard.
I think so. Not least because
Gabriel. I suppose Saliba and Gabriel.
Saliba's not what. I mean, you can't give him Saliba.
Yeah, that is true.
I was out on that US tour. It was being sort of finalised as he was flying in.
Yeah, no, that is true. It's the same with Martinelli, wasn't it? That you're not going to can't really give Edu too much credit for that. Gabriel was certainly Edu, so that's obviously proved to be a hell of a bargain. But Odegaard as well. I'd say Odegaard would be my biggest win when it comes to Edu. I see.
I know it's not like a bargain thing, but Declan Rice should be in there, just in terms of, like what we said at the time was Arsenal have never really faced, or hadn't since Sol Campbell, faced down the best teams in England and in Europe and said, we want this guy, we'll get him. And I know it wasn't just Edu, but the sporting director gets credit for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, big money, but he does have to get credit for it. I do think that certainly everything that Declan said afterwards was Mikel Arteta was absolutely. Yeah. I'm not sure it would have mattered who the sporting director was. It was in terms of who we wanted to go to. He obviously wanted to play under Mikel, but that'll be under. I think certainly value for money. Odegaard and Gabriel have to take the nod for that. Biggest losses, obviously, Fabio Vieira has absolutely not worked at all yet. You never know, but that was big money for someone. I know Pepe, he was around, but that was a row he signing. So I'm not gonna lump that on Edu's shoulders. I'd say probably Fabio Vieira is the one that they've spent big money on, a big risk for someone who'd only really played 6 months for Porto, and it hasn't really worked. Well, it hasn't worked.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well that someone like Sambi gets mentioned. Can you remember off the top of your head what the option is for Sevilla to sign him? And I remember it's an option, isn't it? Not really an obligation.
It's not an obligation, and it certainly won't be the money that Arsenal paid. I think it'll be about 12
No,
million.
which is 17
about 12
million.
million, I think, something like that.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a, but again, that's not a disaster.
It's not terrible, and I could get that. I can get that sign in. You know, I absolutely understand why. It's the same with Nuno Tavares and someone like
Yes,
that.
it's swings, aren't they?
Yeah. You sort of take a punt on those sort of players every now and again. It's not a Fabio Vieira was a lot of money for someone with very little sample size to go on.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, you would immediately change your view on Vieira if they sold him for big money, but Fabio Vieira, I think right now you would do really well to get back half the money you spent, would be my theory, because the concerns about his injury record and his physicality pretty much discount the Premier League, I would say. Well, we'd have to see. This isn't really, this is theoretical. But if you can't sell him to the Premier League, and you probably can't sell him to the elite European clubs, you're not getting a lot of money back for him. So I think that one was a little bit of a misstep there, because that is a price tag that for Arsenal it's too high to be taking a punt. Whereas I think Sambi is sort of the top level. 17 million, but you probably get at least 10 of it back. That's not too bad. But yeah, Vieira, agree with you.
The thing with Sambi, he was very highly rated. I mean, he'd been an Anderlecht captain at that age. He was really highly rated, and so I could absolutely understand that one for Vieira.
Just on Alabe, by the way, we should say, I did agree with Jelly Belly. You need to get the work started right away. Alabe's not leaving Real Sociedad until the end of the season.
No.
So that's going to be the challenge. A lot of these,
but I don't think Arsenal are going to appoint a sporting director till the end of the season. If they,
no,
I think I might be wrong, but certainly the feeling I get is they are not in any rush to do it right now. And if they have to wait for someone they think is going to be the best is out there, they will wait for him and get him in at the start of the summer. Their summer plans. Jason Ito will be leading that. Richard Garlick will be a lot more hands-on in this period while they're waiting for the appointment to be made. And they will be pretty confident they can still do what they need to do in the summer, even if the sporting director is not here in the build-up to it, if you see what I mean. So I don't think that necessarily rules Alabe out.
No, I'm not saying it would, but and I think it's also true of sort of a lot of the candidates they want, that you would find it hard to get them out mid-season. They're all contracted employees. It's not quite like buying a player. You can't just sort of rock up. I mean, you could pay a lot of money to get hold of them, but in general, clubs won't want, especially your rivals, will not want their top executives walking out of one job and straight into another.
No, just like Edu, it'll be the whole gardening leave will happen. This one from Simon says, why do you think Arsenal are not playing as well as last season? Is it down to injury or players playing too many games? Do you think they will turn it round? I mean, we've already spoken about the possibility of turning it around. We're both confident that there is a chance that they could do that. But when he says, why do you think Arsenal are not playing as well as last season? Do you put it down purely to injuries? Because I think I do. I just think, having seen what Odegaard did at Chelsea, if he's on the pitch for the majority of this season, it's completely different. If the defence is settled and they're not having to change things left, right, and centre, it's completely different. And I just put it, for me personally, I just think it all comes back to injuries. Arsenal start to the season performance-wise.
100%. And we should caveat even the question. They aren't playing as well as they were at the end of last season. But even though the results were better at the start of last season, you were sort of looking at like, ugh, they don't look good.
No, I agree.
And there were fewer mitigating factors there in terms of injuries. They just weren't clicking into a groove. Maybe they don't click back into the groove when they have all the personnel they had last season, but I think the best we've seen of Arsenal is right up there with the best we saw of them last season. against Liverpool, moments against Chelsea, and the first half against City. There's been some really good games as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, injuries for me are the big thing. Okay, I've got these ones sort of grouped together, and we spoke about this as well. So, Specific Ocean says, "Love the show, long time watcher. Keep up the good work. Watson, Benge. How, in your opinion, can Arsenal freshen things up for the next round of fixtures after the international break? How can we go on a run like we did in the second half of last season?" Denler says, "My question for you guys after the international break, hopefully the whole team will be fit. Obviously, no Ben White now, or near enough fit. We obviously know Odegaard will be back and help the team play better and more fluid. But do you see Arteta maybe altering his tactics a bit to try and get us better in the final third of Odegaard back? I do feel that would improve, but I still think we are lacking in our directness and speed for counter-attacking turnovers. Thoughts?" Then asked about the transfer window. Do we think we'll look to sign one winger? Sterling just doesn't look like he'll do it for. I don't think so in January. Then Love Henry as well says, "Do you think," he continues the theme on what we can do to maybe freshen things up a bit. He says, "Do you think it's time to go 4-2-3-1 after the international break? It allows to get our best midfielders in, but as we look to end some of the bluntness around our attack, is it more important that Martin is in that number 10 position in the build-up and be a creative outlet for both Saka and Martinelli and Havertz instead of focusing just on the right side of the build-up?" So yeah, a few questions there on what Arsenal need to do after international break to maybe freshen things up a bit and maybe get a little bit more out of the Arsenal attack. So what are you thinking with this? Because it's interesting now, isn't it? Obviously, Odegaard's back. Marino, I thought that cameo against Chelsea was very, very encouraging, as you pointed out at the start of this. See, Partey's there, Declan Rice, we hope will be fine after this international break. I suggest he will be. Same as Bukayo Saka. So there's suddenly, for the first time, basically since the start of the season, Odegaard, Rice, Partey, Marino are all going to be fit and available. Someone's going to have to get left out. You're going to have, the forwards are all going to be fit and available as well. So, there's going to be things for Mikel to think about in terms of what he's going to do and how he's going to tweak it and how he's going to fit people in. So what would you reckon? What do you
Let's
think
just see the first choice front six first, and then we'll assess everything. They haven't played the midfield three that we all think will be the midfield three by the end of this season has not played a minute together. And
you mean Rice, Marino, Odegaard?
Has it maybe played a couple of minutes together? No, because Declan Rice came off for Marino, right? Am I right there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Against Chelsea. Together.
Against Chelsea, yeah.
Yeah. So that midfield three hasn't shared the pitch at all, and I think it is the most balanced midfield three that Arsenal could name, or even picking 3 from 4 or 5 or however many. I don't think you need to start doing things like changing the formation when you had to change the formation to adjust to Martin Odegaard's absence. Get Odegaard back in, just see how it goes. Work with Plan A, because I think there's been too much tinkering, and I think Arsenal, if they're going to get in the groove, they're going to do it playing the football Arsenal have learned how to play. Pity Mikel Marino's not is off with Spain as well, because I think it would be really useful to have him around the training ground on sort of Wednesday, Thursday of the second week when everyone's really going full pelt. But I do think the sort of rush to judgment on a season that is still formative, because by the way, when we all talk about doom and gloom, like, the Champions League is still a long way to go in that one, and you can win that being quite bad in November and December. You've just got to see the finished article that no one has seen yet. Injuries aren't an excuse. Injuries are the state of play. It might all just be fine with the front six that you would expect to start.
Yeah. Spain's second game is on Monday, so he'll be back on Tuesday at Colney.
Lovely.
Yeah. There you go. He'll have virtually a full week at Colney ahead of the Forest game.
And I mean, the joy of like that level of international involvement is I would suspect Marino doesn't play like 90 in 2 games as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they beat Denmark, they're through, and then he can play whoever he wants. I think the B team.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what we're going to see in this run up to Christmas now. Arsenal have to hit the ground running. They have to get some momentum in this period. If the season's going to be a success in terms of the league, this is the crucial stage. They can't get to January, for example, and still be 9 or 12 points behind Liverpool. They have to have closed that gap. So this is a crucial run of fixtures. I'm intrigued to see what Arteta's going to do. And after so long of worrying about injuries, I know the Ben White news is obviously a bit of a blow, but I do think it's manageable as long as Calafiori gets himself back pretty sharply, and Tomiyasu as well. In attack, I think we should see definitely a different Arsenal going forward after the international break with everyone available. So yeah, good options for Mikel to have. Right, who have we got next? Semi-retired Arsenal fan 419 says, "Great work, Watson. Benge boy. Always listen to every single one of your videos since you've started. Thank you very much. My question would be, who do you think needs a big second half of the season to save their Arsenal career? Does anyone need to save their Arsenal career in the second half of the season? Let me answer that first, because I think Martinelli, and I don't think he's going to leave Arsenal, but I think if he wants to still kind of be considered a guaranteed starter, he needs to show a lot in the second half. I think of all the starters in his team, I think his place is probably the most under threat. If Arsenal are going to do something fairly significant in the summer, we've seen they've tried in the last few windows, they've tried to sign Mudryk, and they were very willing to sign Nico Williams in the last few transfer windows. Both, top quality. Well, you can say Mudryk top quality, but you know what I mean. Both left wingers playing on Gabriel Martinelli's side. So I think he probably is the most under threat potentially of everyone who's currently in the starting 11. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
I completely agree. It was the one I was going to pick, so I'm going to say something else to you. Can I pitch to you who I think they should go? And I've really gone head over heels for this guy now. Who I think should come in to replace Martinelli. My favourite, because people don't realise and don't realise unless you saw him earlier in his career how good he is at passing the ball and progressing the ball, carrying it up the field.
This is going to be a Ben's Crystal Palace top 4 shout, isn't it?
I don't think so. Victor Gyökeres, wide on the left. That's something I'd really like to see at Arsenal. Because also then there could be games where you play him through the middle and Martinelli on the left. Right. Yeah, I'm all in on Victor Gyökeres, guys.
So you're going to sign Europe's most prolific striker and play him on the left wing.
Oh yeah.
I think that is up there with your Crystal Palace top 4 shout.
He played there a lot when he was younger.
I know, and I've seen a lot of his goals
into those spaces.
He does do that. I agree. I've seen that. I've seen some of his goals when he has drifted into
sort of a left flank Mo Salah.
I would dearly love to see the reaction though of Arsenal Twitter if Mikel Arteta signed Gyökeres and played him left wing. I really would love to see the reaction of that.
It'd definitely have to be a different sort of left wing to Martinelli hanging out on the touchline, white paint on his boots, but I could see it working. Same with Isak.
I definitely think left winger is needed. And I just think it'd be so short if you've got Martinelli, who would be starting games still, but you need to get into that sort of. I think Arsenal need to get into that Liverpool way of thinking, don't you? Where you basically have Salah, Nunez, Jota, not Gravenberch, Gakpo. I'm missing someone else. I know I am.
I'm not sure you are. Diaz,
yeah. Who you can just rotate. You can have start them one game, start the other 3 the next game, bring them on. That's what Arsenal need to get, and they just don't have that at the moment, really, in the attack. I think if Saka and Martinelli aren't really working, you kind of know whoever's coming on to replace them are not going to be at the same sort of standards. So if you can sign a left wing, I'm not saying this will be the end of Martinelli's career. I still think he'd have a huge amount to play and would still start loads of games and come off the bench and loads of games, play loads of minutes. But I think you definitely need to have another option for him and also another striker as well. Again, Kai Havertz, if Arsenal went and signed Gyökeres in the summer, that wouldn't be the end of Kai Havertz's career. He'd still play plenty and be a key member of the Arsenal squad, but you just got a squad that's a hell of a lot stronger, 100%.
I mean, it's not the end of the world to spend 100 million if it sort of puts a rocket up a Havertz or Martinelli and they just become £100 million player. And, sort of like Grealish has never established himself as the undisputed starter at City, but sort of everyone else plays so well around him that it doesn't really matter. And no one sort of thinks of that as a flop. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you sign Gyökeres, Kvaratskhelia, whoever it is, and Martinelli suddenly gets back to sort of a goal every other game, you go, yeah, well, we'll play the other guy on the bench. It's not bad.
I think Martinelli's been getting a lot of unfair grief this season, to be fair. I think he scored more goals. What's he got? What's he on now? He's on 3. 3 in the Premier League in 11
A bit
games.
more.
Obviously,
He's a very wingery winger.
Obviously, you want more than that, but I still look at some of the what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 3 in his last 6 in the Premier League as well. So it's like, he's beginning to find his form then. I mean, how many goals has Doku scored for City this season?
Possibly 3 in total.
How many goals has Savinho scored for City this season? It's not. I don't think
Someone's been reading my piece on what's wrong with City.
I don't. Oh no, I haven't.
Do you know how many shots Martinelli's had?
No.
And I think this speaks to sort of why, that he is really just a pure left winger. He's had 13 shots in 11 games.
Is he?
I think it's a shot every 52 minutes. And I don't think that's on him. I think that's on how Mikel Arteta wants his left winger to play.
Well, I look at Arsenal's three of Arsenal's most difficult away games so far this season. Spurs away, I thought it was Arsenal's biggest threat by a distance. City away, he got the assist for Calafiori, and I thought it was Arsenal's biggest threat before the red card happened. Chelsea away, he scored the goal at Chelsea, and again, I thought he was, he was a threat in that game as well. So I just think he's been targeted a little bit unfairly. He absolutely needs more output in the final third. I know that, but I still think he's been getting a little bit of unfair grief. Right, I got one more to go before we wrap this up, and it's about Ethan Nwaneri, who scored. I don't know if you saw that. He scored the winner for England under
lovely header.
19s today, 1-0 win. Was it Lithuania? Was it?
Yeah.
And he's got 5 goals and 1 assist in 7 games for the under 19s. Says AFC Matt. Do you think he's deserving of a call up to 20s and 21s? I was surprised he was in the under 19s this time round. I thought he would have been, given the minutes he's played for Arsenal this season, I thought he would definitely be in at least the 20s, but maybe even the under 21s. So I do think for me he's outgrown under 19s football internationally. Certainly outgrown it at club level, but I think he's outgrown it at international level as well. So I was surprised he's in that, and I would suggest it won't be too long till we see him in the 21 squad.
Someone's going to have to fill the spots taken by future dropouts, because I suspect there will be more than 8 players out of the England senior squad by the end of this international break. But it's probably worth saying I just looked up the England under 21 squad, and you've got Archie Gray's getting good minutes for Spurs. Joe Bellingham is certainly living up to the name. Elliot Anderson as well has been great for Forest. So I think we sometimes, maybe not everyone appreciates just how much talent there is in the England youth setup as well. So wouldn't rush him through it. Wouldn't rush him through it at all.
No, I don't think there's any rush, but I can't imagine it's going to be too long till we see him at that sort of level. Although saying that, now Martin Odegaard's back. He didn't get too many minutes while Odegaard was injured. I'm not sure he's going to get that many now that Odegaard is back. Right, I think that's about it for this week, mate. We'll be back next week, probably on Thursday, I would suggest, ahead of that Nottingham Forest game after the internationals have all finished. Enjoy your weekend. You got anything special planned?
It's my birthday on Saturday.
Is it your birthday on Saturday? How old are you on Saturday?
I'm 30-something. 35.
35.
Can no longer claim to be in my early 30s.
Young whippersnapper, mate.
I'm sure you'd take.
I would absolutely take. Yes, I would. Well, look, have a great birthday.
Birthdays and international break. Top.
Yeah, my birthday is on December the 21st, and we are playing Crystal Palace on that day. My wedding anniversary always falls in international breaks, which is always pretty handy. So I don't have to say to my missus that we can't have a celebratory meal because I'm working at Arsenal. So that's always pretty handy. But have a great one, mate. Enjoy your weekend off. Enjoy your birthday. I'm sure all our viewers and listeners will wish you a happy birthday as well. So have a good one. And we'll be back next week to preview that Nottingham Forest game. Speak to you soon, everyone. Thanks for watching.
See you soon. Bye-bye.